Winning one Champions League is hard. Winning two is historic. But winning three in a row, that's straight-up madness. And only one man in football history has done it as a manager. Zinedine Zidane. But what if I told you this wasn't supposed to happen? That Zidane's Real Madrid wasn't built like Pep's Barcelona or Klopp's Liverpool, but still dominated Europe like a cheat code? Well, let's find out. And welcome to Perspective Football. Before Zidane took over, Real Madrid was a team full of world-class players, but no real direction. It was a squad stacked with talent: Cristiano Ronaldo, Luka Modric, Toni Kroos, Sergio Ramos, Benzema, you name it. Yet somehow, they just couldn't make it click consistently. The results weren't living up to the expectations, and for a club like Real Madrid, that's never acceptable. Carlo Ancelotti had just delivered the club's long-awaited 10th Champions League title in 2014, something that had haunted Madrid for over a decade. He was loved by the players, adored by the fans, and respected by the board. But the season after that high was a brutal reminder of how cutthroat things can get at Real Madrid. In 2014-15, Ancelotti's team played some incredible football. They finished with 92 points in La Liga, just 2 behind a treble-winning Barcelona side, and scored a record 118 goals. On paper, that's an outstanding season. But the details tell a different story. They were knocked out of the Copa del Rey in the round of 16 by Atletico Madrid, a team they faced 8 times that season. And in the Champions League, they fell short in the semi-finals, losing 3-2 on aggregate to Juventus. No major trophies. And for a club that lives and breathes silverware, that just wasn't enough. Despite everything Ancelotti meant to the club, the board felt a new impulse was needed. The standards at Real Madrid don't bend for sentiment, even if you're the man who brought them La Decima. So Ancelotti was dismissed. That's when Rafa Benitez came in. Zinedine Zidane was appointed as the new manager. A club legend, yes, but still this was a man with no top-flight coaching experience. He'd only managed Real Madrid Castilla, the B team, and many thought this was just a temporary fix, something to stabilize the situation while the club looked for a more serious option. But what Zidane brought wasn't just stability, it was a belief. It was calm, and it was the beginning of one of the most dominant eras we've ever seen in European football. What he accomplished in the next 3 seasons was nothing short of historic. 3 Champions League titles in a row, a league title, a team that went from fractured and uncertain to ruthless and unplayable on the biggest stage. So let's break it down, season by season, to see just how Zinedine Zidane transformed Real Madrid into a European juggernaut. From the beginning, you could feel the atmosphere change. There was a calmness about him. He wasn't shouting tactics from the touchline or trying to outcoach the opposition on a whiteboard. He just got the dressing room. He understood the Real Madrid culture. He understood the egos, the pressure, and more importantly, the players trusted him. At first, Zidane made a common rookie mistake. He tried to please everyone. He packed his starting 11 with attacking talent. Ronaldo, Benzema, Bale, James, Isco, Modric, Kroos. It looked beautiful on paper, but on the pitch, it was chaotic. Players were stepping on each other's toes, the midfield was wide open, and there was no real structure. Zidane was still chasing the dream of free-flowing, attacking football, trying to recreate the magic he once produced as a player. But it wasn't working. And then came the reality check. On 27th February 2016, Real hosted Atletico in the Madrid derby. It was supposed to be Zidane's statement match. But instead, it became a turning point, and not the good kind, at least initially. Real lost 1-0, the fans booed the team off the pitch, and the honeymoon period was over. It wasn't just a loss, it was a wake-up call. Zidane realized that something had to change, and that something had a name: Casemiro. Up until that point, Casemiro had barely played under Zidane, just 23 minutes. He was the opposite of a flashy signing. No glitz, no glam, just a quiet, powerful presence in midfield. He had returned from a loan at Porto and had mostly warmed the bench, while more glamorous names filled the starting lineup. But the Atletico loss exposed a fatal flaw. There was no defensive steel in midfield. Atletico just walked through the center of the pitch, and Zidane saw it firsthand. So Zidane made the bold move. He dropped some of the attacking firepower and inserted Casemiro into the heart of midfield. And just like that, everything started clicking. Casemiro wasn't there to shine. He was there to do the dirty work. The tackles, the interceptions, the positional coverage, the things you don't always see on highlight reels, but win you games. With Casemiro anchoring the midfield, Modric and Kroos were suddenly free to operate at their best. The entire team became more balanced. They no longer looked vulnerable every time they lost the ball. That one change gave Madrid a structure they desperately needed, and from there, they started rolling. Zidane's approach became pragmatic but effective. Madrid tightened up defensively, while still maintaining that attacking threat. And the results followed. In La Liga, they went on a 12-game winning streak to close out the season. One of those wins? A massive 2-1 victory at Camp Nou in El Clasico. That match was huge, not just for the league table, but for morale. It proved Zidane's Madrid could go toe-to-toe with Barcelona, who was still riding high after their treble win. Real Madrid finished second in the league, just 1 point behind Barcelona, and considering how far they had fallen earlier in the season, that was an incredible turnaround. But the real magic came in Europe. Madrid had already qualified for the Champions League knockouts under Benitez, but Zidane took charge of the real campaign. First, they dispatched Roma, professional, businesslike performances. Then came the quarter-final scare against Wolfsburg. They lost the first leg, 2-0, disaster. But in the return leg at the Bernabeu, Cristiano Ronaldo delivered a hat-trick, and Madrid pulled off the comeback. That was the first true sign of Zidane's leadership under pressure. Next was Manchester City in the semis, a gritty 0-0 away and a 1-0 win at home. Not flashy, but it got the job done. Zidane had built a team that knew how to grind when it mattered. Then came the final, Atletico Madrid again, déjà vu from 2014. This one went to penalties after a 1-1 draw. And again, Madrid held their nerve, with Ronaldo sealing the shootout. Zidane, who took over mid-season with no experience, was now a Champions League winner. And don't forget, Casemiro started that final. His presence allowed Modric to be Modric. It allowed Kroos to control the tempo. It allowed the whole team to breathe. Casemiro didn't just make a difference. He became the backbone of Zidane's tactical success. By the end of that first half season, Zidane had done more than just steady the ship. He'd transformed a fractured, disjointed squad into European champions. All by making smart, brave decisions, like trusting a player no one else had, and building a system that worked, even if it meant sacrificing star power for substance. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it worked. And best of all, this was just the beginning. If Zidane's first season was a surprise, his second season was a statement. This is where it all came together, where Real Madrid didn't just win, they dominated. Not with chaos, not with desperation, but with control, balance, and a quiet confidence that ran through the entire squad. And what's crazy is, Zidane still wasn't getting full credit. Coming into the 2016-17 season, a lot of people still saw him as just a man manager, someone great at keeping the dressing room happy, but not necessarily a tactical mastermind. That narrative? This season was about to destroy it completely. Zidane had a full pre-season now. He had time to plan, to implement his ideas, and to build off what he'd learned the hard way in that first half season. And most importantly, he knew what worked. The big turning point from the previous year, Casemiro's introduction, wasn't a temporary fix anymore. It became the foundation. Casemiro, Modric, Kroos, that midfield three became untouchable. Zidane didn't just find balance, he found identity. That trio gave Madrid control. Casemiro handled the defensive duties with ridiculous discipline. Modric dictated the tempo with those gliding runs and surgical passes. And Kroos was the metronome. His vision, his passing range, his calmness. It was all essential. Now let's talk in depth, because this is something Zidane mastered like almost no one else. This squad had insane quality, beyond just the starting 11. And instead of treating the bench like backups, Zidane rotated. Smartly. Casemiro, Kroos, Modric, Ronaldo, Benzema, Bale. They weren't playing every single game. Guys like Isco, James Rodriguez, Alvaro Morata, Marco Asensio, and Lucas Vazquez all played serious minutes, and they all contributed in big ways. Zidane wasn't afraid to bench stars when it made sense. He didn't rotate just for the sake of it. He rotated because he had a plan. And somehow, he got the whole squad to buy into it. No egos, no drama. Everyone was locked in. That's not easy to do at Real Madrid. And the results? Man, the results were special. In La Liga, Madrid were consistent from start to finish. They didn't rely on moments of brilliance. They had a system. They could win 4-1 one week and grind out a 2-1 the next. They only lost 3 games in the league all season. That's it. Just 3. And those late goals? They weren't lucky. They were a pattern. Madrid had this insane habit of scoring in the final minutes. It became a thing. Whether it was Ramos, Morata, Ronaldo, or Asensio, someone would always pop up late. That wasn't a fluke. That was conditioning, mentality, and belief. Zidane had this team playing like champions before the trophy was even theirs. In Europe, they were even more clinical. This was the first time in the modern Champions League era that a team successfully defended their title. No one had done it before. Not Guardiola's Barca, not Ferguson's United, not even the Galacticos. But Zidane did it. They faced Napoli in the round of 16. An exciting team, dangerous going forward. Madrid just overpowered them, 6-2 on aggregate. Then Bayern Munich in the quarters. This was brutal. Extra time, red cards, VAR controversies. But Madrid handled it. Ronaldo scored 5 goals across both legs. 5. Then came Atletico Madrid in the semis. Again. And again, Madrid were the better side. A 3-0 win in the first leg, thanks to a Ronaldo hat-trick, basically sealed it. And the final? Juventus was one of the best defensive teams in Europe that year. People were expecting a tight game, but Madrid blew them away, 4-1. Goals from Ronaldo, Casemiro and Asensio. And the craziest part? Madrid didn't just beat Juve, they broke them. That second half in Cardiff was one of the most dominant displays you'll ever see in a Champions League final. Madrid pressed high and passed with purpose, and Juventus couldn't cope. And again, Casemiro was massive. He scored the second goal with a long-range effort, but more than that, he controlled the midfield. He shut down Juve's counters, won duels, and covered every blade of grass. If anyone doubted how important he was to Zidane's system, that final killed the conversation. Let's not forget, Zidane ended that season with La Liga and the Champions League, a domestic and European double, at Real Madrid. With all the pressure, all the media noise, all the expectations, he delivered. And people finally started to look at Zidane differently. Not just as the guy who used to wear the number 5 shirt, but as a coach who understood how to manage a big team, make tactical decisions, rotate effectively, and win consistently. That season wasn't about luck. It wasn't about moments. It was about a system that worked, a squad that bought in, and a manager who knew how to get the best out of his team. By the end of 2016/17, Zidane wasn't a novice. He was a serial winner. By the time the 2017/18 season kicked off, Real Madrid were at the top of the football world. They had just won La Liga and become the first team to defend their Champions League title in the modern format. The expectations? Sky high. But Zidane? He stayed calm. No big signings, no tactical overhauls, just confidence in the system and the squad. And honestly, that's what made this final season of the three-peat so fascinating. Because on paper, things didn't go smoothly, especially in La Liga. Madrid struggled. Injuries hit hard, especially to key players like Carvajal and Bale. Ronaldo had a slow start to the league, and by December, Madrid were already out of the title race. They were miles behind Barcelona. Fans were frustrated, critics were sharpening their knives, and suddenly it felt like Zidane was under pressure again. But here's the thing, Zidane didn't panic. He didn't abandon his principles. He didn't throw players under the bus or change the system completely. Instead, he doubled down on what worked. He trusted the core of the team, kept rotating smartly, and quietly shifted his focus to Europe. Because if there was one place where this team still looked dangerous, it was the Champions League. And once the knockout round started, that's when Zidane's Real Madrid truly came alive. Let's break it down. Round of 16, PSG. This was huge. Paris Saint-Germain had just signed Neymar and Mbappé. Everyone was calling them the new giants of Europe. Many thought Madrid's run was finally coming to an end. But Zidane, with all the pressure on him, made a few bold tactical calls. He benched Bale and started Isco to pack the midfield. He used experience, not hype. And it worked. Ronaldo stepped up, scoring 3 goals across 2 legs. Madrid won 5-2 on aggregate. Suddenly, that PSG hype? Gone. Quarterfinals? Juventus. This one was wild. First leg in Turin, Madrid was ruthless, especially Ronaldo. The entire Juventus stadium stood up and applauded. It was a moment that summed up how Madrid were just different in this competition. They won 3-0 in the first leg. The second leg was a scare. Juve went 3-0 up and levelled the tie, but a late penalty from Ronaldo sent Madrid through. It was messy, but again, Zidane kept his cool. Semi-finals, Bayern Munich, another heavyweight. Bayern were in form, and honestly, over the 2 legs, they probably played the better football. But this is where Zidane's Real Madrid showed their championship DNA. They were clinical. They made fewer mistakes. Navas made big saves. Lucas Vazquez and Marco Asensio played huge roles. Madrid went through 4-3 on aggregate, not because they dominated, but because they knew how to win. That led us to the final, Liverpool, Kiev, and this was Zidane's final masterpiece. Liverpool came in hot. Salah was unstoppable that season. Klopp's pressing game was in full flow, But Zidane, he had his game plan. And once again, he made bold decisions, like starting Keylor Navas over Kiko Casilla, trusting Benzema despite fan pressure, and not rushing Bale into the starting 11. The match had everything: drama, chaos, brilliance. Salah got injured after a clash with Ramos. Karius had that nightmare. Benzema scored one of the weirdest goals you'll ever see, intercepting a casual throw from the keeper. And then Bale came on and scored that goal, an overhead kick that rivaled Ronaldo's from the quarter-finals. Pure magic. Madrid won 3-1, and just like that, Zidane had done it. 3 Champions League titles in a row. Something that hadn't been done since the 1970s. And in the modern era, with all the media pressure, the social media noise, the fixture congestion, it was unheard of. But it wasn't just about the trophies, it was how Zidane did it. He built a team that peaked at the right moments. A team that could lose at home to Girona and still knock out PSG, Bayern and Liverpool in one campaign. A team that had flair, but also structure. A team that could play with elegance, but also fight tooth and nail when things got messy. And again, that midfield was everything. Casemiro, Modric, Kroos. They kept things balanced, even when the rest of the pitch was chaos. Casemiro in particular became the spine of that team. People used to think he was just a destroyer. But this season, his reading of the game, his positioning and even his long-range passing were on another level. He was Zidane's silent weapon. And just when everyone thought Zidane was about to build a dynasty, he left. Right after lifting that 3rd Champions League, he stepped down. No drama, no farewell tour, just a press conference and a clear message. The team needs a change. And maybe that's what made it even more legendary. He knew how hard it would be to keep that level. He walked away on top, with the football world still trying to figure out how he pulled it off. 3 Champions Leagues in a row, 9 consecutive knockout wins. Dozens of tough decisions were made right. Zidane didn't just make Real Madrid great again, he made them historic. 3 Champions League titles, back to back to back, a record that might never be touched in the modern era. Zidane didn't just win, he dominated. And he did it with style, with calm under pressure, and with a team that came alive when it mattered most. From the chaos he inherited to the dynasty he built, Zidane turned Real Madrid into a European juggernaut and then walked away on his terms. And here's the real question. In a football world that changes so fast, with managers hired and fired like clockwork, will we ever see anything like Zidane's run again? Because love him or not, that three-peat, that legacy, it's football immortality, and right now, it doesn't look like anyone's coming close. But what do you think? Will anyone match that?